All right, welcome back, everybody, to Foundations of Programming Day 3. Yesterday, we were able to kind of start talking about lesson 2, how the internet works in HTML. We got through how the internet works. It was a very brief lesson, and then we were able to kind of start working with HTML a little bit. We start at least formatting some form of an HTML document. Today, it's going to be strictly surrounding HTML, and we might actually even start CSS today with how far we go. So, uh, you know, Wednesday or today specifically and onwards, where it starts picking up, we actually start putting some code on our screen, doing some exercises, and you're gonna really enjoy these next couple of days and seeing your code come to life, right? Um, who here has any kind of experience with like building a static web page using HTML and CSS?
I don't necessarily have like professional experience, but I've done it by myself,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
setting it
that's
up.
kind of what I was looking for. Yeah, Andy, okay, he's done a little bit. Justin, he raised his hand. So there's nothing better than when you first start when you first see something on your screen, especially if you start off with like something like free code camp to learn Python, or you started with the intro to coding course. It's a little difficult to kind of really enjoy just a bunch of text, right? You're all learning Python or JavaScript. It's very very bland. um it what typically hooks us is to be able to see that we're doing something with code, and then what really kind of keeps us on there is once you actually start seeing something on your screen, you're like, yo, I just built this. It's pretty cool. Like I built a freaking button on my browser. Like it's awesome. And then you make the button work, and that's really what keeps it going. That's kind of the cool things about learning how to code is just um building stuff, right? Most of us here in this class, or most people who end up coding, typically are more creative people, right? We typically, as kids, we open up our toys or destroy them, or we play with Lego blocks, or some of us, a lot large part of the people play video games growing up, and they like doing stuff like that, or just they enjoy stuff that provides them with that mental stimulation because some of us we yearn for that, right? In the military for myself, you get to a point, at least specifically in combat jobs, where you don't really learn too much after a certain point. If you're infantry, once you learn patrolling and weapons and radios, what really much is there to really learn to get really really good at? Um, there's like a couple small things, right? But for the most part, once you learn these concepts, there's not much really to challenge you mentally. So we see a lot of combat arms come here because they want something that makes them think, uh, and where they can use their creativity in. And HTML kind of starts that off. We start to see our code come to life, and then finally implementing JavaScript and making it work is probably one of the best parts. So all right, let's go ahead and kick this off. Let me go ahead and open up um, my repository. So every single one of you guys should be opening up the repo that you guys have on your local machine. So wherever you guys clone down the Foundation Program repository, make sure you guys open it up. We're going to be coding along as we move through the lesson. I want you guys to navigate to where you created that HTML document yesterday before the end of class. And I'm doing that myself right now. I'm not sharing just yet, but it's opening up now. And all right, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, we should all be looking at my VS Code. These are the wrong lesson. Let me close this up. But we should be all on lesson two. In lesson two, we created a new directory, just called HTML demo, where we can kind of work on for now as we talk about HTML. And we created a boilerplate, right? Quick little recap from yesterday. We created an HTML document. I made a syntax mistake or a naming mistake here. Whenever you create your HTML documents, you don't want to call them main.html. You want to call them index, right? That tends to be the correct terminology for your main HTML document. So if you guys want to rename your file, I recommend just so you can get used to it. But usually, your main HTML file is going to be called index. We reference it as index. Um, or CSS files are typically called CSS dot, CSS dot, yeah, CSS is the, I don't know, it's been a while. I don't dabble with this too much often. But one thing I want you guys to install before we move forward, it's going to be the Prettier, which is going to be a code formatter. And this is going to help you when you're typing out, stuff like JavaScript, CSS, HTML. It's going to allow you to format your code in something that's a little bit more readable. I believe this also adds, you know, color coding to some of the stuff that you have on your VS Code. So, this is one of the cool things about VS Code. It's an extension based editor. So what that means is everything that you do in VS Code is usually derived from an extension, right? So if you want to run Python stuff here or Jupyter Notebooks, if you guys recall the guide application program, we had to install the extensions to do that here. And then you can have a bunch of other ones. So I want you guys to make sure install Prettier. That's going to be one that you're going to find useful. And then another one that you're going to find even more useful is going to be VS Code icons, I want to say. Yeah, should be this one right here. VS Code dash icons. It has 21.2 million installations. So a lot of people are using this one. This is going to create an icon in your directory on the left side. And this is going to make it visually easier to see what your files are without having to look at the extension. Uh, and here say select the file icon theme. You can choose between two. I'm gonna choose the first one. I don't know the difference for these. I don't remember. There we go. And it should look something like this, right? Notice that my HTML document now has the 5 here, which this is the icon that they use for HTML5. So without you know, if I wasn't showing the ending of, the extension of my files, I wouldn't know what this is. Some people have these turned off. You shouldn't have them turned off, but this will also help you just visually see what all the different files you have. It just makes it easier to rapidly understand what you're working with. It's not mandatory. It's just kind of quality of life. And then if you guys want, uh, if you are into customizing your VS Code, you can look up different themes, and these themes will impact how your VS Code looks like. If you're using a white theme on your VS Code, do me a favor and sign out of Zoom, please, because you are uh, a psycho. There is no one that should be using the day setting. That's way too bright for some of us. Uh, Dark theme all the way, 100%. There's a couple good ones that you might want to install. You can just dabble with these. There's one that I enjoy using myself. I think it's like a bear, uh, bearded theme. This is the one that I have on my user computer. So let me install it real quick. Uh, I don't remember which one it was. But yeah, they have a bunch of cool different themes that you can experiment with uh, and see which one you like. Let me just choose one real quick. But yeah, uh, it just gives it a nice little setting. And usually these also impact the text color coding. So it makes it easier on the eyes, especially when you're out here for a long time. But yeah, and that's enough of this. Let's go ahead and continue with today's lecture. So when we created this HTML document, I told you guys to do two things. One was to uh, use the exclamation mark. The first item on your VS Code was to use the exclamation mark. And what this did was it produced a boilerplate template of an HTML document, right? We talked about the basic requirements for an HTML document, and this is pretty much the, the the bare bones of what your HTML document should look like. You have the declaration tag that's going to declare what type of document it is. Um, if you ask me what other declaration types there is, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. If I'm being honest with you, because I don't ever use any other declaration types. But we can do a quick Google search and see what there is. Other versions of HTML it looks like, right? So older versions. Um, you could probably check more of the documentations for HTML specifically, and you might find other versions. But the default for just HTML will be the latest version. And then the second thing I talked about after setting up your boilerplate was installing Live Server. And Live Server is what's going to allow us to uh, make changes to our HTML document in real time. And not just HTML document, this is also going to reflect any changes that you make with your CSS or when you add JavaScript to your document. After you install Live Server, what should happen is you should be able to come to uh, your file. You can either right click the HTML document that you're in, or you can right click it on the directory, whichever one you would like. And all you're going to do is click on open with live server. And it's going to default to your 5500 port. And it's going to tell you this that your application is running on port 5500. You can check other ports, and it's going to ask you if you want to open it in your browser or preview in editor. And I'm going to open this up in my editor. Try and open it up on this browser. Give me a second. If for whatever reason you close this, you close that window and you try to open it up again, and it's not opening when you click on open live server, what you're gonna do is you're gonna come down to the bottom right, and all you're gonna do is close it by clicking this part right here that says click to close server, and it's going to stop running your server, and then you can run it again. You can either open with live server here, but you can also come down here to the bottom right and click on the go live, and it'll do the exact same thing. It's going to open your HTML document um, in something like this. So the proper setting for your live server should take you to the HTML document that you are working on. Unfortunately for me, I don't know what is going on with this. I have to fix these settings. But if you get something like this that shows the directories that your Explorer is in, all you have to do is just nest your way to the directory where the HTML document is located at. And right here, I'm going to HTML demo. And there it is. Right here is that document that we were working on yesterday. All right. And typically, you want to split your screen up in half, right? You want to have your VS Code on one end, and then you want to have your browser on the other end. This is what you typically see developers that have multiple screens, because what you'll end up doing is, one screen will be like your browser where you're looking at your application. The other screen will be your actual code. And then if you're a more modern developer, your other screen, your third screen will probably be ChatGPT or something. I don't know. That's typically how I see these days. So, but you don't need to have multiple screens, but it does help to progress your development in a much faster rate. But yesterday we added something very simple, right? We created a boilerplate, and then we added some text in here by creating a tag within the body tag that we have in here. Right? We talked about the different parts of our HTML document, and if you guys recall, I mentioned that the main meat and potatoes of the content of your web page is going to be consisting of what's inside the body tag, right? Now, let's talk a little bit more about these tags before we start doing a bunch of code. Uh, where is the HTML? This is not the right one. There it is. README underscore HTML. Okay. Let's talk about the common tags you're going to find. So first and foremost, we talked about the basic structure of an HTML, right? The next thing was talking about the HTML elements themselves, right? The elements that we have are consisted of the opening tag and the closing tag, right? The closing tag is identified by that forward slash within the angle brackets. And the first example we see here is going to be the H1 tag, right? This is the most common one. There is different types of H1 headers. Uh, if I recall, there's six, right? And if I come down here, I can kind of see right here when I start typing H. When I try to create another header tag, it's going to give me the options. And I see here H1, and it goes down all the way to H6. So H1 is going to be your biggest tag, right? This is what's typically going to be your title, right? What's supposed to call the most attention to your website when you first get there. As the number increases, as it goes from H1 to H2, H3, and so on and so forth, the header gets smaller, right? Typically, you don't want to have more than one H1 tag, right? If you have a bunch of H1 tags everywhere, then you're taking away the focus of where your web page should be drawing the attention of your users. Uh, we're not going to talk too much into that. That goes more into like web design, which I do not have the most experience in. Web developers or software engineers, full stack software engineers are not the same as web design or UI or UX or any of that stuff, right? These are different specializations. Some people have a little bit more experience with working with the front end and dealing with these type of theories and color theory and color schemes and so on and so forth. I'm not here to teach you any of that because first and foremost, I'm not very great at it. But we're going to talk about how we actually create the web page itself. Typically, you have somebody else that'll be focusing on the looks of this. You're going to usually have someone kind of create this for you, or how it should look like, and then you go and then you make it work with code. But the actual design process itself might not be you, right? But what I can say is you don't usually want to have more than one H1 tag because it takes away from everything else. After the H1 tags, you essentially just go to the next H element, right? Depending on what you're working with, right? Big boxes should probably be like an H2 or H3. Smaller sections will go to like an H4 and H5 and so on and so forth. Um, H tags are specifically headers, right? Uh, every tag is going to have a meaning. There's going to be some that are more semantic, but for the most part, about 90% of your tags should be with a meaning. They should have a meaning behind them and why you use them, right? Now, an example of all the other tags that you're going to see, um, and I probably went on the wrong order. So we have this regular tag that I showed you that it has an opening and a closing tag. The closing tag is identified by the forward slash. But what you're also going to see is that we have what we call self-closing tags, right? Your typical common tag will have an opening and a closing tag. But there's other elements that won't have an opening and a closing tag. They will have one, right? And this will be called a self-closing tag, right? These, as you see here, the first example is images, right? If you wanted to create an image in your HTML document, the image tag here is actually different than what the H1 tag looks like, right? Whereas the H1 tag has two tags, opening, closing, the image tag does not. It has one tag, and that's it. That one tag has the forward slash within it, but it is not in the front, it is at the end, right? So this signifies the end of the self-closing tag, which is why it's on the right side, right? So this is what we call a self-closing tag. It's a tag that does not have a specific closing tag itself. It's closing it up within the opening tag, right? And just like the H1 tag, where the opening tag has the name of the element, which is H1, self-closing tags also have the name of their element. IMG is going to be your image. And then we see a couple of things in here, which we called someone take a guess. We talked about it yesterday very briefly. There's a couple of things that will be added to opening tags. These are attributes, right? Attributes. Different tags have different types of attributes they take. The image tag typically has these two tags, these two attributes right here. The first one, and probably the most important one, is the SRC attribute, which stands for source, right? And here within the source, you're going to essentially give it either the URL of where this image is located at, or the file path of where the image is located at, right? In relation to the HTML document, right? What does that mean? When I say the file path in relation to the HTML document, what does that mean?
If they're in the same folder, you don't have to include anything extra. If it's somewhere else, you have to give it the path.
Correct. Absolutely. So Nick hit it spot on. So if they're in the same directory, you don't have to specify, a file path. Very similar to how you see the URL here, how you see that it's telling you the file paths of these different directories. If it was in another folder, you have to specify to the HTML document where to find it. But because they are both in the same folder, the HTML file and the image file are both in the same folder, you don't have to specify the path to get there. All you have to do is specify the name, right? And the second attribute here, who can take a guess what this is doing?
That's if the image doesn't load, the path is corrupted or something. So it's an alternate to it's a description of what the image would be like.
Correct, right? So in the event the image is corrupted, the image is missing. If it's a URL and the link is broken, your browser will, ideally should have something to take its place in the event you can't access this image, right? And then that's what the alt stands for. I believe it stands for alternate. You essentially apply a description to what this image should be, right? So if you had, a website showing you puppies and this specific page is showing you images of beagles, but the image of the beagles are either missing, corrupted, or the link is broken, the description applied to this image tag will be like beagle puppy, right? Something similar to that, right? Something that describes the image that should be here. Another self-closing tag that you're going to see is the BR, which stands for break. Um, it's essentially saying new line, right? Uh, you're essentially creating a space between the previous HTML document and this HTML document. This is another self-closing tag. Another self-closing tag that you're going to see often is going to be the input tag. Who knows what this one is?
For entering information.
What was that, Keegan?
Entering information.
Yeah, entering information.
Where the user would put their stuff.
Absolutely, right? Login forms, questionnaires, surveys, anywhere that requires you to either add text or to press a button. If it's selecting a calendar date, all these are versions of input tags, right? Now, how you differentiate which one is which is by one of the attributes, which is type, right? The input tag has an attribute called type, where it has some defaults that it comes with. And here the type is a text input tag. So it will make it specifically for text. And then we have another attribute here called placeholder, and you can already guess what that is. If you ever look at some kind of input box and there's already some text in there specifying to you, like for example, first and last name, but it's grayed out, right? This is that placeholder. That's how you set that text within this box to allow your user or to give your user a hint of what should go in here. And then another self-closing tag, is going to be your metadata, right? We saw those in the head. So that's another version of a self-closing tag. Now let's talk about commonly used tags. Some commonly used tags, as we mentioned, is the H1 to H6 for different levels of headings. So we won't dabble more on that one. But the next very, very useful one that you're going to use very often is going to be the paragraph tag, right? You wouldn't put the title of your web page inside of a P tag. It doesn't make sense, right? That's not the purpose of it. Will it still work? Sure. Could you manipulate the style of your paragraph tag to make it bigger like a header? Sure. That's not correct though, right? So we typically want to use a tag that corresponds to what your tag should be displayed. It helps development, it helps debugging, it helps scaling of your web page, and it also helps um, SEO, right? And we'll talk more about SEO. There's a lot of things that actually impact SEO. And SEO, for those of you that do not know, it stands for search engine optimization. But we'll talk about other stuff like that, right? So the tags you use, the structure, the metadata that you include into your HTML doc impact search engine optimization. Um, what that means is when someone looks for, let's say you have a business that does electrician work, or if you do carpentry, or whatever, and you have a personal business and you have a website created. When someone looks for a carpentry business to hire a carpenter or to hire a realtor, who shows up first in the search engine is going to be dictated by how high your website ranks in the SEO, right? What is its optimization with the search engine? And I don't do SEO, right? That's a very specialized role as well. So if you want me to explain to you how that works, I couldn't tell you the ins and outs of it. I just know it's a thing. But there's ways that you can impact how high you rank. And then depending on your ranking it'll show you either on the front page or the next page, or it might not even show you at all, right? So um, there's a trick that people do is that they will start a thread on Reddit, and then they'll get like a bunch of like people talking on this thread, and then they'll go back and like comment or edit out, and then they'll put their website to increase their search engine optimization. Apparently, it's a pretty shitty way of doing it, but people do stuff like that to add points to their SEO apparently. Um, but yeah, so that's going back to the P tag. Sorry, I go on tangents. If you're going to create a header, it shouldn't be in the P tag, right? This should be for text, right? A paragraph explaining something, e- explaining what your website's about or whatever you're trying to convey on your website. The other common tags you're going to be using are going to be what are called anchor tags. I don't know why I put links when I wrote this, but these are called anchor tags, right? Uh, and anchor tags essentially create a hyperlink, right? They create a hyperlink. These are, they have an opening and closing tag like the H1 and the paragraph tags. Whatever you put within the opening and closing tag, it's what's going to become the hyperlink, right? And then here we see an attribute on this anchor tag, which stands for href. Hyperlink reference, I think is the name for it. I don't remember off the top of my head. But this is where you would put the URL that this hyperlink should be referencing. All right. So whenever someone were to click the click here button, it will take them to whatever website this is. This is a fake website, obviously. But this is how you create hyperlinks. This is something you're going to be using very often as well. The next common one you'll see is going to be the image one. We're going to be working with all these for the most part to create an image. We talked about that one. Another common tag that you'll be utilizing is how do you create lists, right? There's two different types of lists that you can use, right? One is an ordered list, and the next one is going to be an unordered list, right? You can kind of guess what these are made for, right? When you create an ordered list, it'll default to a numbered list. It'll have the numbers for you, right? Where if you use an unordered list tag, the list items inside will be bullet points. So which one you use is going to depend on what you're trying to list out. So you start the list with the initial tag for ordered list or unordered list, and then for every list item, you create a li tag for each list item. And don't worry about this; you don't have to memorize them just yet. We're going to get some practice with these, but that's just one I wanted to show you. The next one is going to be the div tag, and this is our first semantic tag, or kind of not really explaining anything. But the div tag is typically used to group content in your page, right? Example, let's go to that weather website that we were looking at yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and open up this inspect tool once again. And let me turn this off. There we go. I'm going to click at the section. I mean, make sense of the section. Man, let's see if I can find a div. Span a div. There we go. I just hovered over what's right here. It doesn't have a border, so you can't visually see, but there is a div here that's holding the contents of this together, right? Divs are essentially just boxes, right? Divs are used to box different subjects or sections together to keep them organized or to separate content into like items, right? So you had a specific section just talking about the sports, right? If you had a section for just sports, you might have a div section just for sports. If you had a section talking about the news within the last 24 hours, you would have a div specifically for that. And you can kind of see just visually look at this HTML document within the inspect tools. There's a bunch of divs, and I can kind of hover through them and notice how they're all boxes, right? Each one of these boxes holds a certain points of the website where it keeps like-minded items together. That's going to be one of the most common ones you're going to be using. Okay. Before we continue on. Okay, let's continue. All right. So that was the div tag. Attributes in HTML. You kind of already saw it already. We got a quick little explanation, right? Essentially, attributes just provide additional information about elements, right? What type of information is going to depend on the tag you're using it on. As we saw, the input tag took in a type. It took in placeholder. You saw the image tag takes in source. Anchor tags take in href. So there's different attributes for different types of tags, and they all have their purpose, right? They all have a way to provide additional information for that element, right? Here, our example is the anchor tag, where the href specifies the URL of the link. And here's another tag, another attribute that we didn't see earlier, target. Target is equal to underscore blank, right? This determines how the link opens, right? So typically, what might happen is if you click the link, it might open up a new tab, or it might open up a new browser, or it might navigate from the current page you're in and change it to something else, right? So instead of open up a new tab, it might just redirect you on that one page that you were already on, right? Think of something like this. If I come down here and I click on radar, right? It didn't open up a new tab. It just automatically refreshed my browser and set me there, and I'm no longer in the same location I was in, right? So you're able to also specify or manipulate the way that they interact. We talked about setting up an HTML document, so I won't talk any further on that. We talked about some extensions. We talked about live server. That was good. Prettier, a code formatter. We did not do this on Quokka, a real-time code runner that evaluates JavaScript or TypeScript code as you type. I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't remember exactly how this helped me. All I know is I installed it, and now I don't even know. I don't think it's gonna make a big impact. If I see that it's making a big impact, I'll tell you guys to install it. Oh, here's a really good one. This is going to be a very important one that's going to come in handy throughout FOP and the immersive program. At some point, either today, if you want to do it right now as I'm speaking, look for Rainbow CSV and install this extension before you guys forget. This is going to help you when navigating or working with CSV files, which are short for comma separated values. But besides that one, the next one was the VS Code icons. I remember this one off the top of my head, so we already got this one taken care of. It just makes it creates a icon for your files, right? We saw that already. All right. And then the rest of this repo talks you through the assignment, but we're going to do that in real time. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and open up states.html. So we have this. Just leave this file that we have right now. Don't worry about it too much right now. We'll get back to it as we practice. But I want you guys to go to your lesson 02. Open up the intro to HTML folder, and you're gonna find a file already in here called states.html. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this bad boy up with live server. Let me go to lesson 2. There we go. You're gonna see a couple things. One, you should be able to see the text, right? It will display the text for you, but notice what happened. Our live server gave me a notification. It said live reload is not possible without a head or a body tag, right? So it already knows that this is not an HTML document, right? It's just raw text. It is not HTML, nothing like that. So, what's the first thing that I probably want to do right now?
Add a head and a body.
Right, add a head and a body, or essentially create the basic structure of my HTML document. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna move my code downwards, and I recommend you guys just code along with me so you can kind of get some practice. You can mess around with it as I talk to if you like. That's okay. But just make sure that you guys are kind of messing with it. Have the document open and work with it if you guys can. I know some of you guys might be busy. I know Andy's got his kids, so I understand. But for those of you who are in front of your computer, just try it out. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna set up a boilerplate. We're gonna use the little quick start tool that I showed you guys, and we're gonna start an HTML document. Now, you're not gonna see any real change here, right? Because the text is still in our file. It's just not formatted. So I got my HTML document, and what I'm going to do is I'm gonna try to use everything that we just talked about earlier. And I don't expect you guys to get it right off the bat, but we're going to use different tags to give meaning to the text that I have here, right? This document is called states.html. If I wanted to give this a title, what tag would I use?
Title tag?
Not a title tag. And I know what you're trying to get at. You're referring to this, but you're not wrong, but you're also not right. But if I wanted to create a title or a header, essentially, is the verbiage I should have used. My apologies, it's probably on me. It's going to be the h1 tag, right? And I'm just going to create a states header here to specify that this is my my states webpage. And let me save this because I don't think it's tracking. I'm gonna reload it myself because I don't think it's working. Let me stop running live server and then open it again just to make sure it's good. Open live browser. Demo. Okay. So we didn't have a header here. None of this looks like a header, but I'm gonna add one anyways. Right? There's no right or wrong answer here. It's kind of just messing around with the tags. The first line of text here, what would you say this is? What would you call this? If I had to give it a tag, what might this be? Yeah, it's probably a paragraph, right? So I'm going to create a paragraph tag. To add this in here. And I want you guys to notice something as I code this along, right? There's something I'm going to do when I create these elements. All right, and there's a reason why we do it the way that we do. Typically, what you want to do is when you create a new element, you want to have the opening tag on one line, the text on another line, and then a closing tag on a different line, right? And it's gonna make a little bit more sense as we add more tags in here. But this is how the structure of your HTML is gonna look like. Is it wrong to do this? Not necessarily. It's a small enough amount of text where it's probably negligible, right? It's not going to make a big difference as long as I can visually see this. But where it comes into an issue is when you have long lines of text and you're trying to find the start and the end of a tag. So to avoid having to search through your HTML document left and right, up and bottom to look for the closing tag, the typical convention for formatting your code, your HTML, is going to keep these on different lines. So you have the start, you have what's inside of this tag indented to the right, and then the closing tag is back to the original unindented position of where the opening tag started, right? Kind of like when you start a for loop on Python, right? You start the for loop, you put a colon, and then everything after the for loop gets indented. The only difference here is we have a closing tag now. We have something that we have to close it up with. So we're going to bring it back outside of that code block to specify where this H1 tag starts and where this H tag ends, right? And then if I had multiple H1 elements, let me make this an H2 because it's not good practice. I can at least see where the different headers start and end, right? It makes it a little bit more readable, and you'll see what I mean as we progress. My live server is really messing me up right now. I don't know why it's like this. It's probably giving me issues, if I'm being honest. I really don't want to pause the class. But all right, there goes my header. Let me go ahead and remove this. Hopefully it updates. Oh, I have to manually save it. That's annoying. Okay. All right. So that's my header. And then the next part was creating a paragraph for this long line of text. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a p tag. And then I'm going to create the spacing for this text. And I'm going to move this line up here. Now, right now, it doesn't visually show you a big difference, but it'll make sense as we add the other tags, right? So we have the H1, and then we have the P tag. This is a kind of long piece of text. I know my screen is too small to display it all. If you want to make sure you can visually see all your text, what you can do is you can go to your settings. And if you go to view, you can click on word wrap, or you can use the command Alt-Z. And what it'll do is it'll truncate your code to put it on your screen so you can see everything that's supposed to be on your file. It's helpful, especially if you only have one screen and you can't have a full screen for all your pages. But all right, I have my H1. I have my paragraph tag, right? The paragraph says, I hope everyone decided to be here for our HTML demonstration. We will be creating a list of states. Obviously, I understand these are not all states. Actually, I don't think any of these are states. But that's okay. I didn't create this assignment. But all right, so this is a list, right? We talked about two different lists that we can use. Which ones were they?
Ordered and unordered?
And which one would I want to use here, Nick?
No idea.
Unordered.
Maybe unordered, right? There's no specific. If I was like trying to create a list of like, here's my my ranking of the best states or best cities in the United States, then with that content or context, I might want to use an ordered list. But yeah, right now here, because of the message on my website, there's no actual message that it's trying to convey. I think I can get away with just using an ordered list. once again, there's no right or wrong answer here. When you guys are creating your web page, whatever the message is of your application, whatever the message is of the specific section you're trying to create, that's going to dictate to you or tell you or hint to you what tag to use. So we're going to use an ordered list. Now, notice when I put it inside of this ordered list, it doesn't do anything, right? And that's because although I'm creating an ordered list, I have to give it list items, right? The way that I do that is every single item that's supposed to be on here as a list item has to have their own individual list tag. So the outer tag, right, specifies what list I'm using. And once I declare the list I'm using, the list items themselves have to be wrapped around an li tag. And now what you're going to see is something different, right? My paragraph is formatted, but we also see that, actually, let me show you how it looked like before the list item because I didn't save it. There we go. So the paragraph tag, it did format this a little bit whenever I moved the order list in here. And then I wrapped around Chicago with an li tag. And we see here, my apologies, I used the wrong tag, didn't I? No one said anything. I'm using, what type of tag am I using right now?
Ordered.
Yeah, an ordered list, right? That's not necessarily what we're looking for. We can say unordered list with the UL. Thank you for that. There we go. And we now see I get the bullet points. So my apologies, I overlooked it. This is why we do pair program, right? Someone's coding and someone's visually seeing, and they might see stuff that I might be missing. But there we go. So that gave me my first item, but we see that we have multiple things in here. So I'm going to want to wrap everything around an li tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit each one of these lines with li.
How did you do that?
You can hold the Alt button, the Alt, A-L-T, and then while holding it down, you click at where you want to edit together. And then as you see, it highlights multiple areas. And then you can...
And then how do you end the command?
Press escape or just click anywhere else. Yeah. Either click,
That's really helpful.
escape.
I was copying and pasting everything. That was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, that
no
was
problem.
huge.
Yeah, very, very helpful. Especially for something like this. But there we go. I was able to wrap everything around.
I was gonna say you can also do Control Alt and then hit the arrow keys to add cursors up and down on the lines.
Add cursors up and down.
So if you click Control Alt and then hit the up button.
Oh, yo, that's sweet, dude. Okay, see, I learned something new today. Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, thank you for that, Justin. Appreciate it.
I guess the last one is Control D will hit the next of the same type. So if you're clicking on the LI, for example, the open one, and then hit Control D, it'll select the next Control I. But you have to have it highlighted. So hit Control or Alt D. I'm sorry, not Control D. And hit. I'll show you later.
Yeah,
Maybe
we'll
it's
do
a
it
waste of
every
time.
Thank you, though. I appreciate it. But yeah, there we go. We have everything inside of their individual list items, and now this successfully is within a list. Right on. Let's look at the rest of our text. The next one is a paragraph. It says, remember that our class will meet Monday to Friday for the next 4 weeks from 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central. I will bookmark our Zoom link or our Slack channel. If one of your friends is interested in Platoon, tell them to check our website. What would you put this in? What kind of tag would you use?
Paragraph?
Yeah, a paragraph. So let's go ahead and create another paragraph tag. And And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna shift all of this up. And once I put it in the paragraph tag, now you see that it separates from the last one. Finally, we see here, if one of your friends is interested in Platoon, tell them to check out our website. We might put that in what type of tag? Here's a trick question. There's no right or wrong answer.
Turn it into a hyperlink to the website.
Yeah, we might want to use a hyperlink here. This might be a part of the footer. We also have a footer tag. This is, you don't necessarily have to make a footer tag to make something a footer. You can just put it in a div, but this has a name for it, so we could use it. This might end up being our footer on our webpage. And just like I want to say it was Nick who said it out loud, as Nick mentioned, we want probably to create a hyperlink, right? If one of your friends is interested in Platoon, tell them to check out our website, right? Now, where I set up this hyperlink really is going to be up to you. Well, I might either create the hyperlink on Platoon, or I might create it on website or the entire list itself. Now, if I wanted to create a hyperlink around a word, could I do something like this? Yes, I can. I can specifically only wrap Platoon inside of an anchor tag. Was anchor tag a self-closing tag? I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't think so. I don't think it's no, it's not. But yeah, so we're probably gonna want to make a hyperlink here. Let me go ahead and go to Platoon.org. Okay, I was curious on what it ended with. But let's go ahead and let's link this to Platoon. My keyboard is acting up again. I'm gonna say href is equal to, and notice that the moment I started typing after the equal sign within the opening tag, it already started opening the quotation marks. I'm gonna go ahead and copy and paste the link to Platoon, and I'm going to save my file. And notice how Platoon now has a hyperlink. And if I click this, it navigates me to Platoon. It works. We saw that there was a method to the anchor tag. I don't know the top of my head. Let's check it out real quick.
The target underscore blank.
Correct. Target underscore blank. Thank you for that. Let's try it out. Let's see what it does. Let me say target is equal to underscore blank. And I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna navigate back to that page, and I'm gonna click it. And I guess I didn't do anything. But let's see. W3 schools. What was that?
Did you save it?
I believe I did. Let me double check again, just in case. There we go. You're right. Thank you, Keegan. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I don't know what's going on my live server, man. On my computer, my other laptop, it doesn't do this. I have to mess around with the settings. It's been years since I had to do it, so I don't remember off the top of my head how it works. But there you go. Yeah, it works. So we're able to give it some additional functionality, which is pretty cool. And this is kind of how it goes, right? We have individual tags to do different things. Depending on the message we're trying to convey, it's going to dictate which one use. W3 schools can give you a much better representation of other elements you can use. You would come to HTML. If there's something specifically you're trying to create, you can already see here we have like HTML, page title, images, links, CSS. They might have a whole section to themselves. But you should be able to come to HTML elements, and you should see a list of elements. I guess not. HTML basic. Yeah, I think they might just be in their own section. And that's okay. We'll talk about all the common ones anyways. You'll work through them. You'll be learning as we go through these assignments, so it's no big deal. All right, and that completes states.html. Let's go ahead and go on our first 10-minute break for the night, and then we will continue with today's class in a little bit. Welcome back, everybody. Let's go ahead and come back to our cameras for those of you who are on your webcams. We are going to continue from where we left off. There's one tag that we did not cover. I have it on the repo, but it wasn't directly on the HTML document, and that is using an image, right? Let me go ahead and continue sharing my screen. But if you look at your curriculum, within the same folder that the states.html is located in, we also have a Platoon logo.png. So, who can talk me through creating an image tag within this body tag? All right, cool. I understand we're new to this, so no big. We're going to go ahead and create an image tag. And if you guys recall, this is a self-closing tag, right? So we won't have a closing tag. Even as you type it out, as you see with the other ones, it naturally created a closing tag for you. I believe if you have the extensions that we added. Or actually, I think VS Code is smart enough to do that for you. I don't know what's doing the interaction for you. But we see I have a volunteer, I guess, here. Justin.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was taking care of a kid.
Yeah, of course.
But yes, I'd like to walk people through it if that would be okay.
Yeah.
Or explain it at the very least. Should I share my screen? I don't. Ugh.
Just talk me through it, because
Okay,
it's a
so
quick example.
yeah, self-closing tag. The main things you're going to want to do is you're going to include that hyperlink reference attribute, and it actually has another attribute that's very important, which is the alt, or I'm not sorry, not hyperlink reference, but a source attribute, and then the alt attribute. Those are the two main ones. You can also do a height and width attribute for adjusting it from its default dimensions from whatever source you pulled it from. But yeah, the source attribute is going to be where it's pulling it from, and the alt attribute is going to describe what it's going to be the text that shows up whenever your browser can't pull up whatever whatever source you're trying to have it. And it'll also be for example, if someone who's can't see real good, right? Or can't hear real good. For if you did an audio video one, for example, it will, if they're using voiced text to speech, it will explain what they're looking at. Explain to them whatever you typed in there. Hopefully it's a descriptive thing in what they're looking at.
Correct. Yeah, you're right on the money. And then that little mix up with the source and href, that happens to me all the time. So don't worry about that. Yeah, it happens, right? So if you ever try to do one of these and you put the href and it's not working, try source. More likely you're just putting in the wrong attribute. You would think they're fairly similar, but not exactly. The source can take you to a file path. But yeah, we want to use src for source, and we're going to specify the location of this image in reference to the HTML document. So because states.html is on the same level, right, as Platoon logo, we do not have to specify the file path. Once again, this kind of is building off to whenever we were talking about a terminal and knowing where we were within our directories, right? The nested structure of our folders, or I guess the tree structure of different directories. That concept still applies here. So when this HTML file is run, and it gets to the image source, it's going to take the file path that's here. And because they are on the exact same line or level, within the directory, I don't have to specify anything. Now, let's say within the intro to HTML folder, there's another folder that was like images. Well, then if states was not within that folder, but the Platoon logo was, I would have to specify that. I would have to say images / states. Oh my bad, I used the wrong source. This should be code Platoon logo.png, right? If the Platoon logo was inside the states directory, I would have to specify, hey, inside the states, I want to go into Platoon. I think it might need a /. I don't remember off the top of my head. But essentially, you want to specify the path that you got there, right? But because it's not on a different directory, whether it's up or below, we are on the exact same level. We just specify the image itself. And now, if I save this, it should
It's spelled wrong.
code to look. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No worries.
There you go. Justin said it does not need a /. Thank you for that. Appreciate it, Justin, and thank you too, Keegan. Yeah, so here we have the logo. Absolutely cool. Now let's go ahead and do an alternate image here. We're gonna say Platoon logo. We're gonna add the text Platoon logo. Or actually, I already added it. Okay, cool. And let's break this source purposely. Let's take off that O. And here we see where the image should be. It's showing what looks to be like a piece of paper or like a picture. And notice there's a tear at the bottom right corner, almost like depicting that this is a broken image or it is, doesn't work. That's kind of what it shows to you, but it'll also have the alternate text that you added to it. Let's go back to fixing the source link. Here is my icon. And let's see if I can do some styling. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, inline styling is not my forte. She says, let's go to inline styling. Image styling. We can do this. Okay, we'll say inline style. Style attribute. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Style, color, blue, and there's so many styles, so don't expect to memorize all these styles. But here's a very simple one. We're not going to use color, but we can probably do height and width. So style is equal to. Notice that they specify what you're trying to style and then how you're going to style it. And then we're going to dabble a little bit more in CSS later, so don't fret about it. But let's go ahead and try it out. I started the style attribute and I opened up to quotation marks. I'm going to say height and I'm going to say 50 pixels, 50 px, and then I'm going to save it. Okay, look at that. It already changed drastically. I can use another measurement. I can say 50%. Let's go with 150%. Okay, I think there's a max height to this. What did we say? 500 pixels. There we go. 500 pixels. I was able to make it bigger. Let's go ahead and adjust the width. Width is going to be 250 pixels. And it looks like I am getting an issue here with the width. Okay, it needs a semicolon, not a comma. There we go. So, obviously it's not pretty, but we're able to use inline styling. I do want to note before you guys start messing around here with your HTML document while we're working through this, don't just start adding a bunch of inline styling. What I just did here is not how you want to add styling to your document. Can you do it? Sure, absolutely. But adding styling to a tag directly in your HTML document should be your last resort when it comes to styling. And we're going to talk about why is that. But you are able to add inline styling. It is not commonly used, which is why I'm not too good at it. Because you don't want to do that. We'll talk more in depth, but essentially, depending on where you add styling, stuff will overwrite itself. Right. So it's very important where you style stuff at. So we'll save it to the CSS lesson. But yeah, this is not something you want to do too often. This is very specific. But yeah, I just want to show you that you could style it from here thanks to just to bring that up. And that will conclude states.html. Let's go ahead and move forward.
Oh, I was when I was I guess this might be more significant for like the markup what's the word? I wasn't referring to inline styling when I was talking about the height and width attributes are actual a thing, and that might affect. I don't know a whole lot about the web page, like search algorithm optimization, but that might affect that if you use them as HTML attributes as opposed to an inline style format.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for the clarification. All right. So that's states.html. Let's go ahead and continue. Also, by the way, Justin, just a quick comment from the conversation we were having earlier. The fact that you mentioned that you're a linguist in the military,
Yes.
you are not the first. We've had multiple linguists come through COVID-2. It is the linguists that always end up being are like top students. There's something about linguists in coding that you guys are so good at picking up a programming language. I would assume it's because coding is just like another version of a language that you guys are able to pick it up so well and you're very receptive to knowledge. But
That's a lot of pressure.
I'm just saying, without a doubt, every single linguist that's came through here has excelled. Like usually, like our top student or one of the top students. I've never seen a linguist do bad in our courses. So I mean, and it shows you got a lot of concepts already. You although you don't do this every single day, you know a good amount, or you're very receptive to what's being taught to you. So you are living the example.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
What about combat engineers? How screwed am
No,
I?
oh, we suck, man. I don't know what
Yeah,
to do. You're
that sounds
cooked.
about right.
No, I mean, we might take us another walkthrough, but we get it eventually. We have resilience, we're very resilient. At least we've been through a lot of BS.
I think the word is stubborn.
Yeah, we're very stubborn. Absolutely. Let us try. All right. So other tags, article tag. Uh, this is one of those tags where they're not, you don't need to create an article tag, but this was like the semantics things come into play. There's fundamentally, there's no difference between the div tag and the article tag. They're practically the exact same thing, but the naming of this tag gives it a specific meaning that it lets other people know what this tag should contain uh, and whatnot, right? The functionality is pretty much the same. They're the exact same thing, but they're called differently because they're used for different purposes. But they're pretty much the exact same thing. In article tags, you typically want to use it as the name depicts whenever you have a section on your web page where you have an article, and when you ideally want to click on this article, and it's going to take you to the article. So it's typically also a hyperlink, right? It'll take you somewhere else to the actual article itself, right? So as the name implies, this for articles. We talked about anchor tags. We talked about paragraphs, spans. Uh, Using the states.html example, which one of the texts would you probably think should have used a span? Right? Spans are for short pieces of text. Just looking at this, you probably might already see that there's probably two of these that could have been a span. We could have put the first paragraph in a span and maybe the last one. Maybe this wouldn't have actually been the footer. It could have been just a span. Where a paragraph is usually about 3 sentences on average, 3 to 5 sentences are your average paragraphs. So this one it's right there, right? This qualifies technically as a paragraph. You might want to use a span for something like this, right? So it would have made more sense if this was SPAN for span. Um, is there a difference between spans and paragraphs? Technically, no. There's no. If I'm now, don't quote me. I'm pretty sure. I'm like 99.99% sure there's no word limit to a span. But the reason that we use them is for the sole fact that it's meant to represent small pieces of text, right? So they're essentially the same thing, but the naming convention tells other people that it's only small amounts of text, right? So yeah, we might have probably used only a span for this one since it's only, you know, probably in total like 15, 20 words tops. We talked about ordered lists and unordered lists, the difference between those, right? And then what the actual list type it is, these three have different they work differently. We talked about the headers, the different levels of headers. We talked about divs, forms, right? So forms, think to a login, right? A login page where you put in or like a sign up page to be more specific, right? When you put in your name, last name, email address, birth date, home address, whatever this sign up page is requesting for you, all the contents of that is probably in some kind of sign up page. Let me see if I can give you an example. Let's go to let me go ahead. Instagram.com maybe. Can't do it. Okay, yeah. I want to make sure I wasn't logged in. Uh I can sign up. Let's see if I can see what this looks like. It should be a form. Uh, it's a little tricky because there's a lot of stuff that might be nested within here. But this should be. There it is. Gotcha. Look at that form. The form itself, right? So this sign up page, the contents of the input fields from the email, password, full name, username to even the login buttons itself, all this pertains to this specific tag called form, right? And within here, we have the different parts. We can hover through the contents nested within the form tag, and you can see this is what's part of the form. So typically, when you have something like a questionnaire, a survey, a sign up page, anything that's taking in input, you want to put it within a form tag, right? And then you'll see other stuff that go with it, how we can create methods or functions to handle a form. When you add a method or a function to a form, you're able to collect all the data of the tags that are nested within it, right? There's a specific way of using the forms, but you usually when you're trying to create some kind of part in your application that's going to receive input from your user, you want to create this inside of a form tag, right? So we have a specific tag for that, right? Uh, Notice, let's look at the mobile number or email. It's nested with there's a div here, but if I open up a div, whoa, did they really just use a div? No input tag? That's wild. No, there's no way. They did. Is it nested even further? Huh. They put it within a div. Is there really no input tag? How do they? I'm curious how this works. Uh, no. No. Okay, there we go. I knew I wasn't crazy. Here we go. I had to nest myself in here. Um, there is an input tag specifically for the input box. I knew I wasn't crazy. Like, there's no way they did it that way. I wouldn't even know how that would work. But notice how there is an input tag for the email form. Um, I don't know what this div is right underneath it, if I'm being honest with you. I don't know why there's an extra div here when it's not really needed. Maybe someone just forgot to get rid of it. I don't see anything important. There's no text within this div, but it's a part of different classes. It's a bunch of random classes. And we'll talk more about those later.
Could the div be referring to the box that all of those fields are contained in?
No, because here's that div right here,
Oh, that's right there.
right? They're two different divs.
Interesting.
Yeah, the closing one for this div is right here. Yeah, this is a whole different div. I don't know where this is coming from. Why it's there? I think someone probably added a div and they just didn't need it and they just didn't take it out. Uh, that wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, I mean, you can see how the forms here and there's different parts to it. And eventually, you get to the section. Let's see if we can find the function here. Value name. No, let's see if we can find the button. Yeah, here we go. Button. Button. Here we go. Class disable type submit. The submit button. And then I'm assuming the form has a function called post. Uh, where is this at? In here. I wish I can see this post method right here. High force state break on. Expand recursively. Oh, I can't find it. But there is a method on this form, right? They have it here. It's a post method, and we can talk about this later on. But this form does have some kind of function that whenever you click this button, that is a submit button, it's going to run a function on the moment that you click submit. But you'll see how those works in a little bit. But yeah, that's how the form works and how it looks like, right, and when you might want to have it. The next one is a nav bar. Nav bars, we can go back to the weather app. Here is a good example of your nav bar, right? That's what you're going to use to navigate through your pages. You're going to create them. Look right there. I'm hovering right over it. Look how it's highlighting the nav class on the right side. Nav class, and here, if I open it up, there's a div with other divs holding every individual button. Right here's a nav. So nav bars typically have your pages, right? This is how you navigate through your web page. This nav bar will have like home, your about page, maybe your gallery, maybe your you know, whatever, right? Your sign up page, whatever you want to have in your nav bar. But this is how you would navigate through your web page. Uh, this is actually gonna be one of the first things that you guys are gonna do when you guys get into the front. You're probably gonna start with the nav bar, and you're gonna create pages for every single button. Then you're gonna expand from there. But yeah, there's a lot more tags out there. As you guys start working with your web pages, or when you guys get into the program, you're gonna be exposed to a little bit more tags. You'll start using these a lot more frequently, and then as you are creating your own applications, you might find one that you might look into. There's so much out there. I can't possibly, and this is gonna go for everything that we talked through in this program, as well as the immersive program. Just HTML itself, looking through this, I cannot teach you everything. There is no way that I'm teaching you every single thing about everything. HTML styles, the different styling, the different methods. Like, there is no possible time to show you all this. So we're exposing you to what you might encounter, what's commonly used in the industry, to get you running. But you're gonna learn a lot of this stuff kind of as you work through it. Even people who have been coding for years, 15 years, don't know it all. They're constantly learning. That's one of the cool things about doing stuff like this, coding specifically. It's a profession that you never stop learning. So it always keeps you looking for something new. Right. Also, technology advances. They say that every 5 years our technology doubles. Right. I don't know how true that is, but I hear that. Look at AI. 5 years ago, wasn't really too much of a thing. All right, moving forward. We talked about the HTML structure. I don't think there's a example for that within lesson 2. No, there's not. Let's go and continue. We talked about it already. All right, cool. Our first actual student practice, brownies.html. Gonna be our first practice. We are going to take 20 minutes on this. Actually, not 20 minutes. We're gonna go into 7:30. At 7:30, we're gonna come back. We'll do a quick walkthrough. Maybe someone can demonstrate, and then we'll go on a 10-minute break. Um, brownies.html. Where do I find these, Roger? It's gonna be in the same lesson 02. You'll find inside of intro to HTML, you'll find the brownies.html page. It's going to be a bunch of text. Your goal is to take this text and format it using HTML. There is no really wrong or right answer. I will say if you add HTML to this list of ingredients and you put them every single item within a p tag, that's a wrong answer. Absolutely. So, but you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. If this is a list of ingredients, I might want to use a list tag, right? But if you use a div tag instead of using like uh a nav tag or a footer tag, there's nothing wrong there. But as long as you have an idea of what tags are going to be used for, um, yeah, give this a try. We're not going to break up into teams for this example. I'll let you guys work individually. Time is 7:06. Let's come back at 7:30. I'm gonna keep you guys here. We're not breaking out into rooms. Just go ahead and turn off your camera, and we'll come back at 7:30. Time is 7:30. Now we can do this two ways. One, I can walk through the assignment, and we can, do it together and show you how I would have done it. Or what we can do is we can take a volunteer who wants to show their completed product.
Uh, I did most of it, if you want to see it.
Yeah. Let's see it. You were the first one volunteer, so let's see what you
Okay,
got.
let me share the. Oh, I think this will be it. All right, this is what I'm doing. Can you see it?
Absolutely.
So, I like to plan things out, just in general before even stuff like this. So the way I envision this is, well, first off, I'll go through the boilerplate stuff. I did my head, got my just put the standard stuff in and a link to the style sheet that doesn't exist, with the title being brownies, right? But the way I envision it is, there will be a big, a centered first header that just says deep dish brownies like we have over here. And then underneath that, the picture of brownies. And then underneath that, a bar, like a navigation bar. Well, we can do, yeah, a navigation bar with four buttons going across it, or four links that you can click on. And if I decide not to do that, you can still have them sitting one on top of the other, no harm. But to keep my options open, I put them all in this div class in case I wanted to float things around, because what you can do on styling is segment your page into little boxes so that you can just put things in those boxes as they go, as you want them. And if you put things in a paragraph, it limits your ability to do that. So you'd want to create like classes of objects that you can divide into that. But maybe that's going a little too wild. Anyway, that's why I use the div class here. And that's my vision, like a deep dish brownies title, picture underneath it, and then a little navigation bar under that. And that's my header. And then you've got the main body. I broke it down into, well, you can see where I use this for my own separation of tasks, right? I use this little horizontal row thing between each section. And I did the prep time as the prep time and ingredients of this section. You'll see I've got my header 3 and header 4. I don't know why I put header 4 only on this one and not on directions and tip. That's something I'll have to fix later. But Prep time will be its own thing, 60 minutes under that. And then ingredients I have as a header and then an unordered list underneath that. Because if you include ingredients in the list, then it'll get a bullet automatically, and that's just kind of annoying. For styling reasons, you want to have these separate objects so you can change the title of your list as opposed to like elements. A neat trick that this is actually what Zen coding is that maybe uh, wasn't talked about. If you type in li and then like 8, for example, and you can do this with anything, it'll spawn like 8 list item elements. So that's something you can do. But anyway, that's my first list. Then the horizontal row, second list of directions, horizontal row, and then uh, yeah, the tip that I have another, and then I put this as a little emphasis bracket, and then paragraph, another horizontal row, nutrition. And then I decided to put this in as a footer for the link to the recipe. The other thing I guess I didn't mention was back for this tab, I did make it like these don't exist, but if I were to make links to these different sections that you could click on, you would, well, one, I'd have it set to target blank. Otherwise, it defaults to target itself, which would just keep it within the same page, which might be preferable, but you'd be able to click on each of these and it would take you to that HTML page that you built. And that's everything. I might have gone over it a little fast.
Yeah, let's go ahead and see it on your browser. Live server
show
this
it to
bad
us.
boy.
Yes, okay, let's do that. Du-du-du. Oh. Well, actually, let me turn. I'm not even sure if I do have it up. I have so many browsers.
I think it's open. You have to close the live server and turn it back up if you close the browser by accident.
Yes, I'm just realizing I have so many browsers. Let me just X out of a lot of things. Oh, here it is. Uh, Screw it. This is how we're doing this. That's weird. Hold on. I'm just trying to figure out. Let me close that and redo that. There we go. And I'll save. So here it
Nice.
is. This is what I got so far. Of course, the horizontal bars may or may not disappear whenever the whole thing's done, but that's for my like ease of watching things as I make it.
I love it. This looks pretty cool. Yeah, great work. Let's go ahead and actually add an image for the brownies.
I was
Uh,
actually in the middle of downloading that,
yeah,
unless you have one.
you don't have to do a download. Let's go ahead and go to Google and find a image of a brownie.
Well,
Just go to
that's
Google and type in brownies. We can definitely just use an href or not an href,
oh,
but
I
like a
mean, I
hyperlink.
was actually downloading one from Google before I just nuked everything so I could find it.
I want to show you guys how to do it from here instead of downloading the image. Not ideal, but I mean it's a way of doing it.
Well, I've
Uh,
already created the spot for it.
Do
Brownies
websites not try to
PNG.
stop you from referencing their images like that?
So,
go ahead.
If you right click, you can go to copy image address.
well, I was gonna say if you're worried about copyright infringement or anything like that, there are like websites of people who share their stuff under an appropriate license. They don't block you specifically, and it's actually like a really big issue in like the art world of photographers aren't being acknowledged even by like major news companies for like stuff that's being stolen, or was a few years ago. Maybe they've tackled it a bit more. But the internet's the Wild West, and there's not enough lawyers to handle the problem, I guess.
Well,
So
so there's no way for the owner of that or whoever's hosting that picture on their website to tell that you're grabbing it and linking to it?
In in theory, but there's so much data flying around in cyberspace that that's something that one, most people wouldn't think to put because it's a picture of brownies, and two, it might not be worth the resources to do that for every single person coming to your website. To my understanding, like I'm sure there are people who do. I'm sure there's a way to also, but it's just not high on people's priority list, from my understanding. But I'm just a guy.
I just work here.
Um,
Instead of saving the image, why don't you just copy the address for it and then
Yes,
just put the address in?
oh, that's smart. Okay.
that was kind of what I was trying to get at.
Not copy link because link's going to bring you to their website. It'll be like image link.
Okay,
Image
image address. Where is it?
Image
You
link.
went over it. It's right in the middle.
Up, right, down.
Down.
There
Right there.
it is. Okay. Okay, well then I'll just post that here. And save, and let's see. Hey, there it is.
Yeah, you just got to be careful not to copy their address because if you do, then it's just going to link it right to their website and not have any image at all. So you just got to make sure you copy the image address.
Oh, I guess the other thing you'd want to do in this case only is cite it. And so you can have a little cite tab. And the way you cite stuff like this is just by, that's annoying, is just by posting the link in, and probably a shortened URL would work, but this would also technically work. Or you do the actual link to the page, but there's it cited. Now they have their proper credit and no one's going to sue me.
Awesome. Right on. I appreciate it, Justin. Thank you very much for your demonstration. We'll go
None of
ahead
this.
and I'm gonna pause the recording because I know we worked through for a bit already. Let's go ahead and come back. We are at the tail end of today's lecture. Before going on break, I assigned to you guys the BBC website. Who wants somebody? It's that's not Justin. Who wants to share their
guess.
application? Yeah, no, nothing against you, Justin, but you already shared. So I want to see if somebody else can demonstrate what they've been able to work on. Any volunteers? Nobody. Nobody has any work done. It doesn't have to be complete. If it's just straight HTML, that's okay too. That was the main purpose of it. If you didn't do CSS, you don't have to feel like, oh, I didn't do enough. I just want to see, you know, someone give their example. All right, tough crowd. Okay, Justin, do you want to volunteer? It seems that.
I would love to.
All right, man, let's get it. Before you do share, I do want to say, I don't care if you guys are shy. If you guys want to share, fine, that's cool. But when you guys get into your programs, whether it's the immersive program, even your weekend or DevOps, right? I highly encourage that.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Nick. What's going on?
Mike keeps cutting in and out.
Okay, yeah, we can hear you now. Were you talking earlier? Hello?
Hey, sorry, my mic keeps cutting in and out. Let me share. I can't really talk though. It keeps ending and coming back.
Okay, sure. You can just kind of visually show us, and we'll see what's going on. What you got? Sorry, Justin, but we have volunteer now. Thank you, though. I
No,
appreciate. Okay, this is a BB home. Oh, is this your actual? Oh, this is yours. Okay. Yo, good stuff. It's actually pretty good. You got some good images. Um, you're right on. I don't know how you got these pictures. I'm assuming you probably use like a snipping tool. I know you say your mic's cutting off so you can't talk, but I'm making an assumption here that you probably use like the snipping tool and you probably cut out the pictures and utilize them and save them. Which is awesome. Yeah, it looks nice. Can we see your code now? Andy said I will volunteer, but my kids have a vote too. I understand. Okay, here we go. We got some scroll to your left if you can, Nick, so we can see the start of it. There you go. So he created a div here. He added classes and everything. I'm assuming Nick maybe you have some experience with this that you added classes since we haven't covered it. I'm assuming you've done this before. That's pretty cool. He has anchors points here. He even styled them. Yo, right on. Table.
Yeah, apparently tables were the only way I could do what I was doing without CS.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. Yeah, good stuff. You did a lot. I'm assuming you have some kind of experience with HTML and CSS, Nick. Is that correct? If it's a yes, just go ahead and move your mouse up and down. Yes, a little experience in like Google's. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate that. That's very well done. Um, you found a new tag. I've not seen the table one, which is pretty cool. So that's something new I can add to my own tool belt. You added a font.
You muted yourself.
Whoa.
Thank you for that, Michael. Yeah, I see that you added a font too. That's pretty cool. Love that. We'll talk more about fonts as well for those of you who are interested in that. I like the whole table tag. That's pretty cool. I've yet to see that myself. I haven't even heard that was a tag itself. That's pretty cool. Um, I see that he fixed the width as well as these pictures. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Good work. Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate you sharing your work. I'm gonna go ahead and stop your sharing. And that should conclude today's class. To finish off the thought that I had earlier, this is just kind of like, I guess I would call it motivation or I guess just, words of encouragement or things that I recommend for you guys. When you guys go into this immersive program, whether you're doing DevOps or evening weekend, um, go into this with the mindset that you are there for yourself and your family. Right? I'm not saying to be selfish, right, and to say, "Oh, screw everybody else." I'm here just to make sure I'm successful. What I'm trying to say is more of like leave the ego out the door, right? So if I say that because I asked for volunteer, and I can say I don't care if you don't want to volunteer, it's fine. But for you guys as a recommendation, leave the ego at the door, or just you don't have to be shy, right? At the end of the day, you either whether you got a full scholarship, full ride through Platoon, or if you're paying through the GI Bill, um, somehow this is getting paid for, right? Um, even if it is a free ride for you guys because of scholarship, it's still your own time, right? You're investing your time, and you are betting your future on this opportunity to pan out. So get what you got, where you're here to get out of it, right? Don't be shy, don't be embarrassed, right? Don't feel like, oh, I don't want to speak up because I feel like maybe I'm doing the wrong thing, or maybe other people are ahead of me, and maybe I'm just like my work's not good enough, or like I saw Justin's work and he obviously is far more ahead than I am, so I don't want to share mine because I'm embarrassed because maybe I'm not there yet. Screw all that, right? Don't even think that way, right? You should think about yourself, right? I'm here to earn my full stack certification through Platoon, right? I'm here because I want to transition to tech. I'm here because I want to, uh, you know, take a shot at a new career field. I'm here for my family. I'm here because I'm trying something new. Whatever your reason is for, use that as your motivation, and don't be shy. Volunteer. If a teacher asks for volunteer who wants to share the code, share your code. What's going to happen, whether you're right or wrong, he's going to give you recommendations, right? If you see something that's completely off, that's okay. It's okay if your code is not like perfect. As a matter of fact, it's probably better that if your code's not perfect, you are sharing. So the instructor can show you, hey, you know what? I see you did this way. Maybe I recommend this way. Or he might even ask you, why did you decide to go down this route, doing it this way instead of the way that we did in the curriculum? And then you can explain your reasoning. And yeah, and he can tell you the pros and cons. It might be something that he had not seen before. He might be very impressed. But the point is, you learn something new, you get constructive feedback from the instructor, and yeah, and as a matter of fact, it'll also help with your confidence on sharing your code. Sharing your code won't be something that you're not gonna do in the real world, right? You saw pull requests, right? Code reviews on GitHub, right? Expect to code with others, code with a partner, share the code with colleagues, have people review your code, get comfortable talking through code, right? And your coding interviews, if you're nervous with the live technical assessment, a coding interview is a lot more stressful, right? You either are being interviewed by a senior software engineer or a panel of software engineers, right? And they might be grilling you depending on the company you're interviewing for. So you have to get comfortable showing your code, talking through your code, what your code is doing. And you won't get comfortable by not sharing your code or not volunteering, right? So definitely, if the instructor asks you who wants to share their code or who wants to share what they're working on, take the opportunity, show the class what you're working on or what you got, and put yourself in that situation because it's gonna help you in the long run, right? There's no room for shyness. There's no room for like having your ego here. Don't worry about that, right? Just make sure that you guys are getting better every single time. That's my only words of encouragement or advice. But that's going to conclude my little spiel and today's class. I see Justin. Yes, you have your hand raised.
This is like kind of an aside, but in the interest of leaving the ego at the door and talking a lot, I guess, would you be able to help me? I plugged my code into a validator just because I feel like I wanted to do that, and it's given me two errors. Would you mind staying after and help me look at that a little bit?
Absolutely. We can look at it together. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. All right. So with that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Tomorrow we will start CSS. CSS is fairly quickly. And the reason why it's so quickly is, we're going to talk about the syntax for CSS, how we connect CSS, and we're going to talk about the most common ways to style stuff. But there's so many different styles and different things that you can style. Once again, there's impossible to cover everything and be proficient in it. We're going to expose you to it. I'm going to get your feet wet. We're going to mess around with some styling, make our websites look kind of visually appealing, and then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of JavaScript, which is what really matters, right? HTML and CSS, you can pick that up fairly easy. You saw that at my repository, how much of my code was HTML, 0.5% or 0.05%, right? So HTML, you don't write that much HTML, just enough so you can structure your website where the real code comes in and your website is going to be in the JavaScript and the Python. So we won't spend too much time with CSS either. So we'll do CSS tomorrow. If we are able to start JavaScript, we'll start it tomorrow as well. If not, we'll start it Friday. But that does conclude today's class. Thank you guys for showing up, and I will see you guys tomorrow.